Hello, hello, everyone. Welcome to our podcast. My name is Marti Murphy. I'm an emotional fitness coach and a certified EFT practitioner, and I'm here with my friend and colleague, Christy Foster, for our podcast, No One is Perfect, where we have real conversations about life's messiness. And there's
Hello,
always plenty of
Marty.
that,
What a good day to be on a podcast with you.
right?
Thank you. And I am Christy Foster. I'm a psychosomatic therapist that I do a lot of emotional release work and body work and helping people really understand the patterns that show up in their body from these different aspects that happen in life. And we're together today to actually begin to offer some resources and understanding around the body, around the psyche, and hopefully you can see it as a resource to use when needed, when you feel, stressed or out of control. Today, we're actually going to talk about a pattern called the saboteur. We all sabotage ourselves at different times in our lives. And it's one of the four archetypal survival patterns. Last time we did the victim, we've talked about the child. Today is saboteur. And the last one that we'll talk about next time is the prostitute and the pattern of that. So for today, the saboteur. So this pattern of saboteur, we've been talking about the Wizard of Oz and the different characters in the Wizard of Oz that represent us as humans. And the saboteur in the Wizard of Oz is the Scarecrow. And if you remember the Scarecrow was flopping and flighty, and he wasn't quite sure how he was on his feet,
Ungrounded.
very ungrounded. He didn't believe he had a brain. And what that means archetypally is that he doubted his own wisdom and instincts. And we all have that as humans. As we grow and we develop and we learn to trust and we heal, we learn to trust more. Um, I hear this quite a bit, and Marti, you probably do too. I just don't trust people. And my my reflection to that is first we must learn to trust ourselves, because if we don't trust ourselves, we will never be able to trust other people. And that is an ongoing work in progress. The saboteur, if you can think of it as we're moving in and out of these patterns as life happens. And when we can recognize we're moving into this, what I refer to as shadow dance, we're dancing with the shadow of the saboteur. And if we can identify it with our minds and understand it, we may be able to slow down and come into a more grounded space and really tap into what is my intuition telling me? What is my body telling me? What is that next step? Instead of continuing to sabotage or go into a pattern of not trusting.
I love that. Honestly, Christy, it makes me think of that quote that I sent you about stop everything.
Mm-hmm.
To get back to center and learning to trust the self. And I have kind of an attitude about sabotage, not an attitude, but in my world, in the tapping world, there is always, always, always a reason that we sabotage. It's
Yeah.
always about self-protection. It becomes maladaptive over time. So I think that's just important to note, because I think there's a lot out there about self-sabotage that just has people judging themselves more and making them wrong. And again, what I see at the end of The Wizard of Oz is how, with the Scarecrow too, he does come to trust himself. Like the whole journey, the yellow brick road and all that for all of them, but particularly for this topic with the Scarecrow, is you're watching the journey into self-trust, like how that's coming into being. And I think it's just so good to remember. It's a lifelong journey, like anything. We talk about that all the time.
It is. And one of the pieces in the Wizard of Oz and the part of these archetypal structures is about choice. And the saboteur archetype is requiring us, when it's in our fields or our awareness, it's requiring us to pause and what action is being asked of me to take. And that may be an internal action of not eating sugar that day. It might be an internal action of noticing my judgment of another or self. And then it can, it's so vast in going out into our workspace, into our relationships, patterns that we recreate based on our upbringing, because we
Yes,
replicate what we know. And the more that we begin to know, the less we can blame, the less we can hold others accountable. And this is not about bashing ourselves. It's
right.
really about taking accountability for the pattern, giving yourself some time to make a choice, whatever that is, what is true for you, what is true for me. And I know for me, the more I practice that knowing of what is true for me, not true for you, Marti, because our truths are different.
Yes.
And I think that's really, really important in this conversation about the saboteur. Is one of the shadow aspects of it as well as projection.
Yes.
And
I love that.
assuming that you know, or assuming that you should blank because of whatever is going on inside of me.
Right. You brought up a great point too, Christy, and I think it goes down to that it's patterns that we learned in childhood, and we are going to recreate those to
Mhm.
heal them. And, I think about that term where people are, I'm so done with this. Stick a fork in me. I'm so done. The whole, you attracted this. Why are you attracting this into your life? That to me is very punitive. It's very punishing instead of saying, of course this is in my life.
Mhm.
Like, of course this is here. How could it be any different given my upbringing? And that starts to bring acceptance into why patterns and these, archetypal patterns are within us rather than, the punishing, punitive, which so many of us have like ad nauseum have learned how to do, and just go, it's there to help us learn and grow rather than that, you attracted it. Why'd you attract it? Like, that thing, which is it's just so detrimental to people that I see.
It is, and especially when there's been vast amounts of trauma, I think it can create more confusion and shame that, oh, I just screwed up again then. And that's
That's helpful.
no, yeah, because it just smashes you right back down to the pancake.
Yes.
Well, I'm
Yeah.
asking. Well, I don't know. And this is really about empowerment.
Yes.
The saboteur to stepping into the magician, like creating something that you aren't able to articulate, but trusting yourself that something else will be created.
Yes.
When you make
Yes.
the choice or when you speak up about your truth and really know that your truth isn't everyone else's truth, but this is the work of you.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. And I think people do get hooked in like my truth's got to be your truth. And no, it doesn't, because we all come from vastly different life experiences. And I wanted to share something that just stimulated in my thoughts. Like with my daughter, I look back when she was younger again, and there were behaviors that I had that I was like, oh man, like I said, send me the therapy bills. And the biggest piece of that was judging myself for that. And then with my on my tapping journey, all of a sudden one day when I was tapping on this for the umpteenth time, it just landed like, Marti, it was the wound that made that choice, made those choices. And that was so liberating because with that came that like, given my upbringing, given what I experienced, how could I have ever done it any differently? How could I have? Do
Yeah.
I want to go back and repeat that? No. Moving forward, Do I want to be different? Absolutely. But that self-compassion that started to come, and what I noticed with that too is then the self-doubt started to diminish. It's not like I'm free of self-doubt. That would be ridiculous to say, but I notice like it's less for me. And then there's times where it's like, oh, I just have, I would say the thing that's grown for me over the time is more confidence in like, okay, this is my journey. This is that. And I think that's what I see in the Wizard of Oz is towards the end, just the, I don't know if I want to use the word reckoning, but the healing that truly happened on that whole journey for everyone.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because it is that it's seeing those aspects of us.
Yeah.
And I've seen it from an archetypal perspective is so helpful because I remember watching that as a kid, feeling sorry for the lion who
Yes.
was afraid. And I remember thinking, but you're a lion.
Right. Right.
How are you afraid? And,
Yeah.
and the Tin Man, the irony of him being so strong and he didn't believe he had a heart,
Right.
and the rigidity in thought versus being in his heart. And
Yeah.
little munchkins being the children, teaching us how to play and sing again and have fun.
Yes.
So beautiful. And the Wicked Witch of the West, right? The shadow aspect of power. And we
Yes.
all have that in us. And I, I really believe with a lot of Carl Jung's work, as he talked about light and shadow, to remember we always have both.
Yes.
And the
The
work
paradox.
it
Yeah.
is. And one doesn't exist without the other. And I think if we can kind of put our arms around both and go, okay, sometimes I'm going to sabotage. Sometimes I'm going to do, the best I can and trust. But to know that there's no perfection
Right.
in any of these archetypes, because it's really about growth and finding your own instinct and choice and continue to heal and give compassion to that part of yourself, part of myself that, decided to eat that piece of sugar I shouldn't have eaten, and
Right.
understanding where my nervous system is in that moment versus
Yeah.
doing it blindly.
And that's why I think like with when we have that self-sabotaging behavior, to me, it is so important to understand that it is always in some way, on some level, trying to protect us.
Yes.
So, because that starts to take it's a maladaptive way. It becomes a maladaptive way. What worked once doesn't work anymore. But it's like to always come back to that place of compassion and understanding, like we're still trying to protect ourselves in some fundamental way.
Yeah.
Rather than, because what I see so often is there's so much judgment around, oh, I self-sabotaged again. And it's like that kind of thing. And, I mean, the judgment of self is what holds it in place.
It is. And that's it. It's a life journey.
Yeah.
And one of the big pieces around this saboteur for me that I've seen in my life is that fear of change and knowing I need to make a different choice. And then my brain kind of looping through, well, what about this? And what about that? And what about this for days? And then the choice isn't made.
Yeah.
Definite saboteur, and how much mental and emotional energy that drains out of my system by
Yes.
not trusting even to make the smallest choice. And those little tiny movements of choice matter. And it's, to me, I do think of it as I think it was Marianne Williamson, it was, that talked about choice is a practice of love.
I love
And
that.
that we can flex that muscle and strengthen that muscle. And intuition is the same. If we get an intuitive hit, to actually do something with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that helps us move out of this saboteur energy that we all can get in.
Yes. Yeah. It's like my husband and I were talking about this recently. It's that thing, even like, say, you're Like, I'll give an example, going for a mountain bike ride, and you have a cup with this, say, energy drink in it, and you sit the cup in this spot on, say, the tailgate of the truck, and you go, I shouldn't do that. I'm probably going to forget it. But you ignore that, do everything, and then the next thing you know, like you hear a ding, 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 ding in the middle of the road, and you're like, see, I knew it. But those little things, that's like the little practice grounds for like, oh, okay, maybe I'll listen to this and see what
Yeah.
comes.
And they are little things because I think intuitively we always are asking, and I don't think it's relevant what people believe in. I think
Yes,
we're naturally wired to go, oh my gosh, okay, help me figure out how to blank.
right.
And in that asking of the field, whatever that is for you, they come and answers come and guidance comes. And it makes me think too of like even how many times I've almost gotten on the freeway and I had this feeling, you probably shouldn't get on the freeway today. And I go
Yeah,
the other way and nothing happens. But when I don't trust that,
yes,
something tends to happen.
yeah, yeah. That's interesting. When I was young, in college, it was the summer. I was living down at Lake of the Ozarks and working down there. It's in, southern Missouri. And we were living in this, a bunch of us were living, there was like 6 cabins there. And there was a prison that was actually not that far from where we lived. And we were in a rural area where we actually lived. And I remember I was walking up from the main house to the cabin that my girlfriend and I lived in, and I get this feeling like, don't go in there. It was
Mm,
weird. And the closer I got to it, I was like, don't go in there. And I
yeah.
turned around and I went back to the main lodge. I have no idea whatever came. But what I noticed is every time that like I took a step, the feeling got stronger. And I was like, I don't know, maybe it was a bear or whatever. Maybe it
Right.
was nothing, but I was like, trust that.
Yeah.
And in the trusting of that, we really may not ever understand, like, oh, I avoided this or that, but it's to still trust that, for whatever reason, I'm being guided. Because we sure know when we get that impulse and we don't act on it, we're like, oh,
Yeah.
I should have trusted it.
Well, and I think on that kind of impulse too, Marty, sometimes what can happen, and you'll hear people say this, I'm sure we've all had those experiences. It's like I felt the hair on the back of my neck. I had chills because our body is that intelligence communicating to us in whatever way that is. And my guess is that also happened, right? You even said the closer I got, the more I'm like, no, I'm not going to do that. And
It
um,
was visceral in my body, like, no, like I definitely felt it, like the anxiety was going up. Yeah,
yeah,
especially in the
and
set.
so important to listen to that part as well
Yes.
of your visceral sense because they work together.
Yeah.
That intuitive sense of I need to step back or get out of here.
Right. Yeah, there's a great story I've reposted on Facebook many times. I assume it's true because it says it's factual about a cat that was on the Titanic and it lived down there and it had kittens. And there was a guy that worked in the bowels of the ship that was in that stoking the coal and all that stuff, whatever they did. And we'd always watch the cat like while they were prepping the boat and everything. And on the day before they were supposed to leave, this guy noticed that that cat got up and one by one took all of her kittens off the boat.
Oh, wow.
He was like, I feel like I need to trust that. And as the story goes, he got off the boat and said he can't make it. And then we know what happened to the Titanic. And I was
I
like,
believe that.
right, really? Yeah,
Cool
it's like,
story.
I know it's a very cool story. Yeah.
Well,
So
animals
he's watching
are
this
intuitive.
cat that knows and he's trusting, like, oh, I got to trust this.
Wow, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
Because yeah, I do think those kind of things come into us.
Yeah.
and tying that into the saboteur, the one of the patterns is resistance. And resistance and doubt of what's coming to you. So that's a good example of you walking towards that. And even a simpler example of that is to notice when you're in resistance about making a phone call or bending to your own judgment and your own self about being more flexible. And
Yeah.
the resistance is a huge charge in our nervous system over a long period of time. And sometimes that resistance is like thinking that we know mentally more than what our body tells us, what our intuitive instinct is telling us.
Right.
And we start to doubt ourselves, and that doubt long term also pulls into and makes the body start to get sick. It
Right.
really does. And with resistance, sometimes that like physically can show up as clenching the jaw, which we'll see. People can clench their jaw a lot and it can start to spasm.
Yeah.
Can be an indication of resistance to either speaking up, because with saboteur, it in the body, it ties into speaking, which is our throat energetic center, and our belly. Our belly represents in the energetics sense of self and identity and trust. And we speak it all the time. Oh, I felt it in my gut. I had a gut
Yeah. Oh,
feeling
yeah.
I shouldn't have, or had a gut feeling that I should, and I did. And then this is happening.
Yeah.
So to remember that patterns show up in a physical way as the emotions come in and show up, and the thinking patterns are probably the biggest part of the saboteur.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The mind just, has a party and on its own for sure. And when you talk about too about resistance, I definitely think it's good to know for me, there is a difference between resistance and what I call non-resonance. So, an example, years ago, I was a coach in a coaching program, and the woman that I was the coach for was basically telling people, if you don't do it this way, you're in resistance. And then I had a client go, I don't want to do it that way. And I go, then don't. They're like, what? Wait. And I said, it doesn't sound like it resonates with you. And that to me, I learned that that was a different. So it's good to know, like, there's a difference. There's
Mhm.
times it's like, it just it feels like I'm in resistance here, but really what's happening is I'm non-res like it doesn't resonate with me. Because for me, and I'd love to know your experience with this, Christy, like you said, resistance is so typically strong in my body. I'm a big jaw clencher. Sometimes I'll grit my teeth. And like that's not non-resonance with me. Like resistance is like, I want to fold my arms and it's
Yeah.
just so this my body is very actively engaged, whereas non-resonance is more like it just doesn't feel right.
Right. The charge is different
Yes.
because when there's a physical charge of um, like folding your arms, like clenching your teeth. And I would say also the tendency, like when we, just for people to notice in somatics, when you're clenching your teeth, that also is directly related to your pelvis.
Yeah, that makes so much sense. Yeah.
And people can clench their hips, tighten all of the pelvic muscles long term, can
Right.
cause pretty severe pain.
Yeah.
And I would say, I would agree with that because when we're in resistance, we feel it. And I love what you said about resonance. What is the truth for you? Again, if we come back to, like your client said, that doesn't work for me.
Right. That's fair. Like it's not cookie cutter. It's
Yeah,
like, and then she was like, I'm doing this, this, and this. And I'm like, that sounds like that works for you. So just do that. And
yeah,
it's good that she knew, you could definitely tell she's like, I'm being told I'm in resistance. And it's like, no, you're not in resonance. So it was like she was, quote, in a way, given permission to just keep doing but it was more like, I would say it this way, she was affirmed in her
yeah.
own decision.
Which is really helpful, especially
Yes,
when it's something like that.
yes, yeah, yeah.
A couple other aspects of this saboteur. One is a big one around time. So when you're hearing yourself, and I learned this a long time ago, I practice catching myself still when I say I don't have enough time, because whatever we say is true. And if I'm saying I don't have enough time, I'll never have enough time.
Time expands to meet my needs.
Time expands to meet my needs. And what I say when that happens is I have plenty of time.
Yeah, I love it. Just to say something different.
Yeah. Well, it interrupts that thought pattern of the saboteur,
Yeah,
because how many times I know in my life through the years, I would tell myself I don't have enough time, and it amps up my nervous system
right.
when I do have
Oh,
time.
yeah. Oh,
But
yeah.
that's also part of growing up in my world, that there wasn't time because there were so many things that needed to be done. And the list never got all the way finished ever.
Oh, never. That was such a great awareness I had one time. I'm like, Marty, doesn't matter everything that goes off this list, there's a new list already starting. And it
Yes.
just was like, wow, right? I'll never be finished with the list.
No. And we just changed the list the next day.
Yeah.
But that tying to, and I would say again, resistance to that there's not that there is another way
Yeah.
to manage time, to what are your beliefs around time.
Right.
Because if the belief is there is no time, or I haven't made time, we're never going to get to that next thing,
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
it is a creation of our thoughts and our reflections around us, literally,
Yeah.
because we all do have the same amount of time.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and I like that. Like you said, it's just a pattern interrupt to say something different. It just made me think of this quote I just read, and this I'm paraphrasing, but don't seek truth, seek to release your fixed opinions about everything. Something like that. Like I was like, oh, yeah.
I love that,
Yeah,
because yeah, truth's all relative.
it is. It is.
I think one of the examples Carolyn Mace would give is, the truth is gravity exists on our planet. If you jump off a building, you're going to fall. That's truth. But what your truth is, once again, doesn't mean it's true, doesn't mean that it's my truth. But what is that? And start to uncover all of those elements and
Right.
pull back the parts of us that were constructed in our religions, in our culture, in our family tribes, because those are meant to keep us together. They're not negative.
Yeah.
Once we grow up and we come into this different way of being, and the idea that I don't have to believe that there's no time, or that there is time, and we start to dismantle those beliefs and come into resonance with our own truth, and that sets you free from continually to fall back down that slide into saboteur.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a conscious awareness of what's running in our heads, though, and what we're telling ourselves.
Yeah. I love that line to go slow to go fast. And
Oh,
I
so true.
so see that in myself when I notice when I'm in that pushing, rushing mode. Like I watch the clock more. I watch it tick down. Oh my God, I only have like 3 minutes left and blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, in a tizzy. And other times, like when I'm more relaxed and chilled out, it's like, wow, I still have plenty of time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And it feels so great to start to exist in a different way.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I think we all go in and out. I know I do. I understand the concepts that we're talking about. And we're all still human. There's no perfection in
Yeah,
this.
right.
And perfectionism is its own type of saboteur as well.
Oh, absolutely. And like I've said, Chrissy, I'm the preacher of self-judgment. Like, we can't change what we judge. Yet, of course, we teach what we need to learn. It's the biggest lesson for me is catching myself in the act of
Yeah,
the self-judgment. And, it's just it's a forever journey.
it is. And I think that's really where growth and compassion comes in, when we can
Yes.
trust ourselves. Like we were talking about in the very beginning, it's about trust.
Yeah.
And when we can trust that we can have compassion for ourselves when that does come in, any of these saboteur archetypes come in, that they are more for, they help us. For me, they're like strategy. Oh, this is where I'm going, or this is what I'm thinking, and here's some different choices I can make.
Yeah.
And that's truly empowerment from going down that spiral slide of hell,
Yes.
that pit of despair again. Because only we can really take our own hand sometimes and give us compassion, and hence what we give to ourselves, we can give to others, and
Yes.
trust ourselves that we can. There
Yeah.
again, I don't trust people is really about, I don't trust myself.
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and coming back to that, and maybe to reflect on your, on some questions of what is it you don't trust. Sometimes
Right.
that's that I won't make the right decision, whatever right means.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And some of that comes from the fear too of childhood, of I'll get in trouble if I make the wrong decision.
Because you did. You did
Yeah,
actually get in trouble when you
yeah,
made the decision. So it's like, of course, that part gets activated. It's like, oh, and then you're like, oh, wow, I didn't get in trouble this time.
yeah. And to notice that,
Yes.
and
Yeah.
to know that you are now the parent of you,
Yes.
and that little child has, you have that child's back.
Yeah. And I love that the
Too.
subconscious doesn't know the difference. You can reparent yourself at any age.
Yes. And that shows up in many ways,
Yes. Yeah.
in many ways. So the saboteur archetype is a big one, is a big one. And one other one I wanted to add with this shadow aspect is distraction. And our world today, I notice myself, like, I think it's funny that all of us know what doom scrolling means.
Oh my God. I just heard it recently. And even before I was like, oh, I know exactly what that is, even though it wasn't explained to me. Yeah.
Yeah. And my son the other day came upstairs, and he's in college, so he's doing homework, and he said, Mom, I realized I was doom scrolling the other day and I didn't get my homework done. And so today I've made a pact with myself. I can doom scroll for 30 minutes. And he set a timer on his phone, and then I'm going to do homework. I'm like, great.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah.
such a good example of, because distraction is everywhere, even when we're doing homework or we're working online. Ding, 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 ding on our phone,
Oh,
computer.
yeah.
And like you said, slow down to go fast. Is that what
Yeah.
it was? Slow
Yeah,
down.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Go slow to go fast.
Yeah.
Right. And I noticed that too. Speaking of the dingings, it's like on my phone, I'll hear a ding and I'm like, like the immediate, and it's practicing like, you don't have to go deal with that right now. Or
Yeah.
even a phone call comes in, let it go to voicemail. And I
Yeah.
notice sometimes when I do that, it just depends, on the circumstance. It's like, then it's like I'll listen to the voicemail and then I call the person back. They're like, oh, never mind, I figured it out.
Good example.
Yeah.
And it doesn't need to be, I don't think we need to be at people's beck and call.
Oh my gosh, right? I call it the beck
That's,
and call girl. I'm not your
yeah,
beck and call girl.
exactly. And it's nice to know that you're in charge of that.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, it's such a journey for me. Like, wait, oh, somebody called my name. Just stay here and finish doing what you're doing.
Right.
It's okay. Don't drop everything and run in. Yeah.
Oh, we, one of the courses I took a long time ago, it was about understanding women. And I think the most valuable thing I learned was, she said, okay, so men come from hunters, men hunt. They do one thing and they become hyper focused on one thing. Women are naturally, they have diffused awareness, because in caveman days, while man is hunting, getting animal for the family, women had to make the fire, feed the baby, make sure bears didn't come in, make sure the kids didn't eat poison ivy, all of these things that
Yes.
made up that way. And when I want to really focus, that is what I have to do, is turn everything off and commit to myself for this hour, I'm looking at nothing but blank.
Right.
Or if you're going on a walk, to leave all the stuff home, your phone, your pod. Because we used to actually walk without phones.
Oh my God, I remember all those years I never
Right?
looked at the phone, ever.
I laugh because now it's part of all of us.
Yes,
It's not a
absolutely.
bad thing. Um,
Right.
and I don't mean it to be that way, but it's really to notice how much are we distracted.
Yes. Oh yeah. Yeah.
And it takes a lot of energy if your nervous system is already heightened to continue to be distracted and interrupted. I think creates more of that angst because there's no settling.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. No. That's a great we could I just thought of a tapping we could do that I love about settling the body, and it's super simple and
Great.
it's so effective. I actually just did it with a client not but an hour before this call took place. She goes, "Oh my God, I feel so much calmer."
Great, Marty. Let's go into that.
Yeah. So, like everyone, take responsibility for yourselves. If you get activated, just keep tapping. So, the idea here is you're just going to start tapping on the karate chop. And what you want to do is focus on this idea of settling, relaxing, calming. Just with that idea, you don't have to repeat anything. Just think about settling, settling the nerves, settling the mind, settling the body, settling the emotions, calming and relaxing. And now start to slow down the tapping on the hand with that idea of just settling. And then make it so slow that you're just pressing. And you're pressing on the karate chop point with that idea of relaxing, releasing, grounding, calming, settling. And now go to the eyebrows. You can use one hand or two. I'm just going to do two this time and just press. We're going to be pressing now at that idea of calming, settling, releasing. And then go to the side of the eye. Same thing, just pressing. And you can close your eyes too. That can be helpful. Calming. If you have frayed nerves, imagine they're calming, soothing. And then under the eye, again, calming, relaxing more, grounding, settling. Under the nose, and you're just pressing again with that whole idea of like any frayed part of me is just calming down. And then chin point, so that dent in the chin, just settling, calming, releasing even more. And then collarbone. You can also just open your whole palm if you want and hold that. Just do both sides or one side. Again, settling, calming. And under the arm. I think I'm choosing to calm my nervous system even more. I'm I'm choosing to allow my body to regulate even more. And then top of the head. You can do your whole palm or just a couple fingers. That same calming, grounding, settling, relaxing. And then just take 3 breaths at your own pace.
I'm going to add with that, Marti, as you breathe, and you can keep your eyes closed, to relax your belly and let it become soft and not pulled in. Relax your jaw and your tongue, and relax your hips, allowing the body to follow suit in that calming, slowing down and noticing. And then take another breath, noticing the breath go in and the expansion of the rib cage, the expansion of the lungs. And notice the breath go out, letting the shoulders relax on that out breath, in that slowing down.
I always feel calmer.
That's a great one, Marti. Thank you.
Yeah. Yep.
It's a great one. Lots of good conversation today.
Always.
Thank you.
Thank
And yeah, thank you everyone for listening. Please use this as a resource and share it to those who might need it. And we will be happy to see you on our next episode. We will be talking about the prostitute archetype, which has a lot of different nuances. And we all have that one too. So we'll talk about that. Thank you everyone for listening. Thank you, Marti.
Bye. Thanks, Christy. Bye for now.